everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak and we've got another beautiful late summer, early fall morning. It's pretty cool this morning though. It's 49 degrees when I started. It's probably right around 50 now. Got my layers on. The sun's just starting to peek above the horizon, trying to get up over that tree line. And we've got bright blue skies, or they will be when the sun gets up over those trees. A few wispy clouds, not much, and a light northwest wind. So these are going to be pretty tough conditions. And I noticed on my last trip that I had a few fish shy away from a Zoom Super Fluke, fished on 12-pound leader. So this time I've downsized to a bait called the Bass Assassin Shad, and I'm fishing that on a 6-pound leader. So quite a big jump. And we're going to jump into fast forward mode. So much easier paddling across the lake in fast forward mode. And if I run into any fish, I'm going to stop and cast at them. Once I get to the other side of the lake, I'm going to peel off a few of those layers and start fishing. I wanted to try a new jig head. It's called the VMC Tungsten Moon Eye jig head in 3/8 of an ounce. My first impressions is that it's a nicely made jig head, but the hook is very light wire. And I don't think I'm going to like that for very long. But it would take almost nothing to set the hook. That's the good thing. But I'm going to have to be very careful not to bend that hook out. And I have that jig head. It's a smaller hook. I think it's only a 2/0 hook on a 3/8 ounce jig head. And I have that on a baby Z2, a gray glimmer baby Z2. The jig head, even though it's tungsten, it looks pretty large on a baby Z2. And I also feel like I wasn't getting the right rock and roll out of the jig and minnow compared to a freeloader with a 1/4 ounce head. I think that head was just too heavy and the bait didn't have enough body. So even when I would shake it next to the boat, it really wasn't rocking very much. I've got a loop knot on there and everything. So here I am. I'm casting that 3/8 ounce tungsten jig head with a baby Z2 on the back. I'm letting it hit the bottom. Flip over my bail. Get everything tight. Reel up the slack. I pop it off the bottom. And I got a fish on already. But that was the only fish that I really had. I had a few that they grabbed a hold of the tail and they kind of twisted the bait and I didn't get a good hook in them. But those could be perch, those could be anything. And I really had high hopes for that jig head in the combo. And something just wasn't quite right. I have to play around with the weight and I might have to go up in size to the Z2. I know that works on a 1/4 ounce jig head. At least the Picasso jig head that I've been fishing. And that is the wrong species. That is a chain pickerel. The name of the game with those guys is to get them in the net as soon as possible before they cut you off and steal your jig head and bait. So that's not my target species for today. And that was really the only fish I got on that combo. So I had to switch gears. And I went with a Bass Assassin Shad. And I only had to make a few casts with it. I'm off the edge of a point right here. It's basically a downsized version of a Bass Assassin straight tail combined with a Zoom Super Fluke. So it's got the forked tail, but it's a little bit smaller. It's about 4 inches long. And they put a little bit extra plastic in the belly to help it cast further. Now because of that, you need a very specialized hook, I think, to get good hookups with this bait. Because of that extra plastic. So I like a 2/0 mustad grip pin fine wire hook. And it's got the extra wide gap, so the extra plastic isn't a problem. And it's got a fine wire, so it's easy to set the hook with light line like I'm fishing. I'm fishing 6-pound leader. So it's basically a more subtle version of a soft plastic jerkbait. And with light winds, bright skies, I wanted to go down to a lighter leader and get some of those fish to commit where they weren't committing to a super fluke the other day. And my plan seemed to work. And I wasn't sure it was going to because of the way the fish were reacting to the jig and minnow. But again, I think that was because I had too heavy of a jig head and I wasn't getting the right rock and roll on that bait. But anyway, as soon as I picked up the Bass Assassin Shad, I started catching fish. That's a largemouth that got himself buried in the weeds. I'm fishing kind of an outside weed edge on a inside turn off of a point. So on each side of the point there's going to be inside turns, and I'm on the shady side of the point. That's not a bad one. Yeah, we're getting somewhere now. This is a couple casts later. I'm still fishing the same general area. Inside turn, outside weed edge, off of that same point. It's a little bit shady on this side. I think that helps. That fish slurped it almost off the surface. I had to look to make sure he got it. That one went airborne. Look at him go. I'm fishing that little fluke on a 7.2 medium light Corrado, Shimano Corrado BFS rod. It's a little heavy for BFS, but it works great for micro Texas rigs, micro jigs, micro football jigs, the Z-Man Baby Goat, all that kind of stuff. And it also works great on these little downsized super flukes or Bass Assassin Shads, whatever you want to say. And I've got a Micro Monster reel on there. And this fish has taken me into the weeds and buried himself in the weeds. And I'm putting the beans to him all that I can. I've only got 6-pound Yozuri hybrid leader, but that stuff can take a beating. I really think it's as strong as 10-pound fluoro for some higher grade fluoro. What I'm going to do is actually paddle up to my leader knot. Once it's above the water line, I can grab a hold of the leader, and I'm going to pull that fish out of the weeds. Now, he's free now, and he just shot out into deeper water. Well, to wrap me around more weeds. But, you know, if you tried to do that with some other fluoros or other copolymers, you'd pop the knot. And that's one of the reasons I like Yozuri Hybrid. This isn't an ad. They don't sponsor me. They don't give me any money. I just like the product. And if you look at the price for some of those premium fluoros, 25 yards, you know, it's a lot of money. And you can get Yozuri Hybrid for less than $10. Sometimes $5, $6, $7 on sale. And it's 275 yards. And I use it like leader material. And it's the best value going. It runs thick, so I don't go with the listed pound test on the spool. I go by diameter. And it's great. It's great stuff. I use it all the time. For fish that have really keen eyesight, like funny fish like bonito and albies and things like that, I think in certain circumstances it makes sense to pay up for premium fluorocarbon like Seaguar Gold Label and other high-end stuff. But for 99% of the bass fishing I do, even in places with 20 foot of visibility, 6-pound Yozuri Hybrid works just fine. I don't see any sign of the fish being leader shy when I drop down to 6-pound test. And it works great, and it's so much cheaper than the high-end stuff. So that's what I use, and it seems to work great for me. All right, let's get another fish. I moved to another point that's just a little bit down the pond. I missed a fish just there. I'm trying to get them to come up and go after that Bass Assassin Shad. And it's tough because it's bright skies. It's mid-morning now. But every once in a while I can get one to come up and eat that fluke. Or Bass Assassin Shad, I suppose I'm supposed to say. He was only a little guy, but that's all right. I'll take anything on this kind of day. Let's do that again. Yeah, so that reel is a micro monster, and it's a clone of a reel called the Dark Wolf Ultra. If you're familiar at all with BFS fishing, that's bait finesse system fishing, a Dark Wolf Ultra is kind of a baseline reel, and there's 3 or 4 different clones of that reel, and they all come out of the same factory, and they all have different names and different brands, but it's really basically all the same reel. And I paid about $50 for mine, and I think it's worth about $50. It's definitely not a high-end reel. It's you know, a Chinese factory BFS reel, and I don't expect it to last. It's already a little bit slow to engage. Once you make a cast and start turning the handle, it's hard for it to engage right away. Sometimes it takes a rotation or two to get it to engage. So this reel probably isn't going to last a decade, more like a couple years. But for what it is and the price, I feel like it's pretty good value. I can fish just fine with it. I can make decently long casts. I'm not going to set any records with that reel, but I'm finding fish. I'm catching fish. I wish it had a little bit more drag, but that's pretty common with BFS reels. Even with it cranked down, I feel like the fish can still pull drag, but it's not, you know, I'm using this reel for a little more than what it was intended. If you're going to fish, you know, 6-inch brook trout in streams, the drag is more than adequate. For bass, once they get, you know, over 2 or 3 pounds, the drag's a little light, but I'm also fishing pretty light line, so hey, and there's another one. Got that one off another point. This is a pretty easy pattern to run, by the way. I'm just running from point to point, rocky outcropping to rocky outcropping. I make a few casts, see if I can pick off an active fish or two, and then it's on to the next point, or a rocky outcropping. And anybody can fish this way. You know, if you're a tournament guy and you want to get a limit and then try to upgrade, you can do that. If you're just out with some kids, you want to catch some fish, as long as they can cast a weightless fluke, you can get bit on these soft plastic jerkbaits. There's nobody else out here now. There's nobody else fishing. It's just me and the fish and bright sun. And this bait is helping me get some fish in the boat, whereas other techniques seem to be struggling a little bit. Downsized soft plastic jerkbait, lighter line, and I'm getting some fish. I think that was the last one of this trip. I kept fishing a little bit more to see if I could add any more to my total, but I think that was about it. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. The star today was definitely that Bass Assassin Shad, and the color is called Crystal Shad, I believe, something like that. It's a bait fish looking color. I'll put it in the video description. Yep, so just like all my other videos, today's gear will be in the video description, so you can duplicate what I was doing out here today and hopefully have some good success wherever you might live on your home lakes. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!